gonna start. Hold on. Go. Okay, so we are the first days of the Parshas Lecha, transition between Noach and Lecha. I'd given a Shiur on Shabbos, and need to clarify a few things. And shock and awe. They're really very simple ideas, and they were all rooted in here about how so are. The idea is this: three parties that existed in Gan Eden, Adam, Chava, and Nachash, that were had a specific mission. What was the mission of Adam as he entered Gan Eden? Let's understand. So Hashem creates the world. How does Hashem create the world? So, from what Asfarim Kedoshim tell us, this is our Masorah for thousands of years. It's Zohar, it's called Sefer Kabbalah. It's a legitimate Jewish concept. Is that Hashem first had to create something known as the Chal HaPanui. Since Hashem permeates all existence, whatever might even be a potential of existence, so how do you create anything other than Hashem? It's ki'ilu, as if it has some sense of otherness. As we do, we sense that we're alive. We sense that we exist, right? Maybe we mistake, but maybe we're all in Hashem's dream. This is what the secular philosophers wasted a lot of time. Okay, they still didn't figure it out. But they didn't learn Torah. So I think one said, "To be is to do," and the other one said, "No, to do is to be," and they're still arguing. But whatever that means, we do have a clear indication of what our mission was, and it was as follows. Hashem opened up a space and injected within it what's known as the Kava York. It's the, for lack of a better word, umbilical cord, where God's energy comes down to the world. And just like a placenta, which is really the way I kind of conceptualize what the Chal HaPanui was, it's like a womb. And Kava York being the umbilical cord. So the world is being formed. How is it formed? So Hashem created 10 spheros. The first three, Ketzer, Chachma, Bina, are not really part of the main world experience, but they inform the experience. But what man experiences more in his present state, at least after the sin of Noah, after the sin of Adam, is the lower seven spheros. The lower seven spheros. It was those spheros that then went on and created 4 levels of existence. That's what's known as the Olam Abiyah, known as also Atzilus, which is the world most ethereal, close to Hashem, right? And then you have Olam Havriya, in which there's a little bit of, again, it's like a process of giving birth to a baby, the next world is a little bit of a shape, a little bit of differentiation, and then the Olam HaYetzira, already there's spiritual entities that exist, maybe angels, maybe so on and so forth. And then there's the Olam Vasiyah, which is our world. So in our world, which is called Olam Vasiyah, the original design of Hashem, which was rooted in a design known as Adam Kadmon, from which all his existence sprang, came into a concrete form. What was the purpose, though? Well, we were lowered down into this level, but it was not as low as we are now. Man, as he was created, was a very impressive creature. In fact, going to Ramchal, when the Malachim, who were created prior to Adam, saw Adam, they thought he was their maker. That's how impressive he was. So he was greater and more impressive than a Malach. And hence, all the arguments about Moshe against Shemayim, against the Torah for Am Yisrael, and the Malachim are arguing, and basically what they're saying is that, they have to come to terms with the fact that Man is greater than a malach. His potential and his purpose is much greater than malachim. Malachim are just servants of Hashem, carry out Hashem's will. But Adam was given the opportunity to actually partner with Hashem. Even though Hashem was nice to the malachim, what is he saying? Nasa Adam b'tzalmeinu. Let's do a little consultation here in Shemayim. He didn't want them to be jealous, let them feel part of things. But what was Adam supposed to do? He was this incredibly spiritual creature. We can only imagine what it was. Last time we spoke about Or versus Or. He was a light being. You could see from one end of the world to the next. And much like technology has given us the opportunity to do things that we could not fathom. What can we do that we couldn't fathom years ago? You can look in a telescope and see worlds away, right? They could travel to the moon. They could going in Mars, get pictures of the universe. How? You could see from one end of the universe to the other. Couldn't we do that before? 100 years ago, 200 years ago? No, we could see a little bit. Now we can see a tremendous amount. We can research a tremendous amount. We can do things very quickly. We've overcome a lot of the restrictions of this world. Space, time, travel, knowledge at your fingertips. We are being groomed to remember what Adam was and to try and finally make the right choice. What was the right choice? Well, Adam was a tremendously spiritual creature. All he had to do was keep one mitzvah. What was that one mitzvah? Not to eat from the Eitz Hadas Torah. Why not? Why not? Because the answer is very simple. Until he did that, until Chava succumbed to the Nachash, and the Nachash thereby caused man to drop from the level of a potentially eternal being into the world of mortality, right? Adam wasn't supposed to live only 1,000 years. That's just a drop in the bucket, right? Man was supposed to be an eternal being, living in bliss with Hashem and Gan Eden, whatever. And the Nachash caused us to become mortal. It caused Chava to become mortal. And how did they do that? Well, up until that time, the Yetzer Hara, personified by the Nachash, the Satan, the Malach HaModes, the agent of mortality and death, was external. Just like Adam and Chava and Nachash the Nachash was external, right? It wasn't part of Adam and Chava. It was supposed to be an agent of Adam and Chava. Because I'll tell us that the Nachash was so clever that it was like Adam's right hand snake, you know. What do? Fetch. I can send the dog out. Go fetch. Bring me my newspaper. Right? Bring my newspaper. So you could send out the snake who was so incredibly intelligent and brilliant, say, go find me diamonds and rubies and pearls as if you needed it. This is in the service of mankind. The Nachash actually symbolizes everything that knowledge represents. Hence, he was very interested in the Eitz Hadas Torah, knowledge, science, understanding, technology. If it's man's shikingel, like we say in Yiddish, right, then that's a very good thing. I heard Ambassador Friedman, by the way, spoke for 5 minutes. Brilliant presentation. They opened up the Friends of Zion Museum from all the evangelicals, and he gave a speech. And his speech was very much this. He said, they opened up a media center for all these reporters who say good news about Israel. Boy, they're like the only, they're 3 of them. They have them all in one row. They say the good news about Israel. Wow, Israel's great, it's contributing to the world, making scientific discoveries and helping with water and with reducing disease and helping out into natural disaster and healing people from traumas. Isn't Israel great? That's not what we hear. We hear that we are basically an international crime. That's what we are. We are a crime against humanity. Did you know that? The only real crime against humanity was what the Nachash did to Adam and Chava. That was a crime against humanity. And So the desire, the idea of independent thinking that's not connected to Hashem is what the Nachash represents.
What?
A thinking that's not connected to Hashem. See, if technology is in the service of man, is associated with man, and man's best interests, it's a blessing. What a blessing. It'll bring us food, it'll bring us medical cure, it'll bring us energy, it'll bring us conservation, it'll bring us life extension itself. Right? The keys to Trias HaMesed. But if it separates and becomes its own personal agenda, and that was Ambassador Friedman's idea. He says technology in the service of self-interest. That's what leads us to nuclear disaster, potentially weaponry that can destroy mankind at ever-increasing rates, right? Even those little incendiary balloons, and so on and so forth. Technology in the service of self is very dangerous. And he spoke about how many people are losing hours and hours of their lives, including all of us, looking at news, looking at things that are not in our best interest. And certainly not necessarily connected to Hashem. So, when they ate from the Eitz Hadas Tov V'Ra, as I told you, Chazal described it as if ki'ilu, there was a marriage, a link between Chava and the Nachash. And in its most radical sense, the Kabbalistic Svarim tell us that that means that there was actually a off product of that union, which was one of the two progenies of Adam and Chava, Cain. So the Cain is born of the Ki'ilu, not a marriage between the integration of Chava and the Nachash, whereas Hevel is born out of the integration of Adam and Chava. So Adam and Chava's, they had two kids. Now again, so people say, well, how do I take this literally? Just take it for what the Zohar says. Okay, it's a message, it's an idea, and it's the wisdom that they share with us. So let's just take it in and digest it. There is therefore a part of man that incubated within itself evil. What is evil? Evil is simply self-interest as opposed to God's interest. It's very, very simple. Who is in charge? Me or Hashem? So by the Nachash getting them to eat the Eitz Hadas Tov V'Ra, we mentioned last time 3 opinions of what it was. It really means that he injected the mortal and lethal qualities of the Yetzer Hara into the human psyche, whereas otherwise it was external. So I heard someone give an example. It was a good example. He says, before the sin, if someone came to a human being and say, jump into a fire, that would be ridiculous. Somebody comes to you and says, jump into this fire. You'll say, that's ridiculous. Of course I'm not going to do that. It's obvious I'm not going to do that. Anything that wasn't Hashem's will was as obvious to Adam and Chava as jumping into a fire. Okay? Because they didn't really have a Yetzer Hara. Everything was clear. They did have Bechira, but the Bechira was so kind of obvious that it almost wasn't Bechira. It was bordering on not being Bechira. Similar to the Jewish people when? When did we say the Jewish people were like almost compelled? Yeah, what's the Lashon of Chazal? Kafa aleim har kigigis. They held over their head a mountain like a barrel, like they're going to destroy them. What does that mean? It was so obvious. The truth was so obvious, it might as well be, like they didn't have a choice at all. It was only later in the era of Purim, when things were very murky, when the base of English was destroyed, and they didn't know what the future of the Jewish people was. And it says, then they were able to affirm God out of real choice and doubt. But at that time, it was almost... What Adam had to do just one thing. If he observed the mitzvah, he would therefore have become more attached to Hashem by virtue of choosing to follow his will. And he would have begun a process of ascending higher. Because think about it. What did the world do? 10 spheros, top down. The original spheros being much higher. Everything is in the direction of going downward, right? 4 worlds, top to bottom. So what does Adam's job? Climb the ladder back to the top. That is the purpose of man. Now, how do you do that? How do you get more and more godlike? More and more godlike. Go higher and higher and higher. Well, you connect to Hashem. That's all of our mitzvahs are that way. What do we say? Mahu rachum, avatar rachum. He's compassionate, you be compassionate, right? That's all. By understanding God's mindset and understanding what He wants and understanding His qualities, and by imitating them and growing closer and closer, that's the idea of dveikus. That's really the task of man. Except instead of going higher, what did we end up doing? Nevach. We ended up going lower. We continued the descent. Now, how far does that go down? All the way down. All the way down as far as you can go. Right? There are 7 visible spheros. Each sphera has within it those 7 components. Just like every week has how many days? 7 days. So the structure of time emanates out of the spheros. That's the whole idea of Shabbos. Right? And then we just go down, 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 until we get down to Mitzrayim, where the Jewish people, who are the hope of mankind, descend down to the 49th level of Tumah, and you get rock bottom, and you can only go up from there. That is the 2,000 years of tohu, and madness, tohu vabohu. Now, when did that process change? With the emergence of Avraham Avinu, correct? So we know Chazal tell us there were 10 generations between Adam and Noah. Okay. And then 10 generations from Noah till Abraham. Why 10 generations? Why? There are 10 spheros. Maybe they'll get one right. I'll give you 10 at-bats. You're going to strike out on all of them? Maybe you can do a little chesed? Gvura? No. Tiferes? Nah. 0 for 10. If you go 0 for 10 and you strike out every single time, then that's it. You got to give somebody else a G. Next batter up. All right. So when we're speaking about the generations of Adam, the primary problem was that there was an attachment to the evil of the Nachash. And again, the Nachash was not all bad. It's just that there's something that took over the Nachash. The Nachash was taken over by the Satan and became an agent of the Satan as opposed to being an agent of Adam. You got it? So it's all, who's the boss? Right, you know that book, All for the Boss? If it's all for the boss, it's good. If it's all for you, it's the Satan.
You're saying the Satan is external to the Nachash?
Yeah, that's what the Zohar says. It says it rode the Nachash, like it would ride it. What does that mean? It took all of its potential and energy and turned it towards self-interest. Okay? That's what that is. Now, as we said, there are 3 primary self-interests, which form the core of the task that was inherited by Avraham Avinu and eventually by Klal Yisrael. Kina, Kavod, Taina. Says the Mishnah Pirkei Avos, Shlosha Dvarim Motziin es Adam min ha'olam. There are 3 things that will take people out of their olam. Some Meforshim say, out of olam ha'ba. What got Adam and Chava kicked out of the garden, and along with the Nachash, by the way, because he didn't do too well either, and Cain and Hevel for that matter, because they were already born, was the 3-part, tripart issue. Now, if you really want to go a little bit deeper, I would suggest the top 3 spheros are called Keter, Chachma, and Bina. In their corrupt form, right, they become Kina, Kavod, and Taina. Let's see why. Let's take a look at that for a second. All right? Keser, if you want to visualize it, and this is very, very important, because the theme of the 3 the three, is the building block of everything that a human being could do. Hence, man, woman, child. Got it? Man, woman, child. That's the three. And then you've got thesis, antithesis, synthesis. This is how the world works. Hashem programmed it that way. Why? I don't know. That's what he decided. The world works like that. There has to be two opposing forces that clash, out of which something new is born. We're not a stagnant world. I heard something absolutely shocking about the DNA, which is like is the building block. Do you know that apparently why we live forever, in other words, why did Adam and Chava become mortal, is because their ability to renew cells started to diminish. That's what happens to us, right? As we get older, the ability of the body, that's why when they want to do refuah, what type of cells do they take to give medicines? Stem cells, which are from where? The umbilical cord. That's the connection to life, right? Over there, the entity is infused with life force energy that renews and renews and renews, right? Kovei Hashem yachlifu koach. It goes around and around and around. Now, apparently, there's something called, they've discovered that when cells reproduce, they actually reproduce, ironically, in some sort of form of 50. And each time they reproduce, one is chopped off. Yeah. Did you know that? It's called mirlings or something like that. Telomere. You want to tell me about it?
It's like
Tell Mir about it.
it's like the tail end of it, it's lost.
Okay, let's look at the structure. 50. What's 50? 50 is the 7 times the 7. It's all the permutations that creation can have. Like Shiur, right? Shiur Omer, 7 weeks, 1 day in each week. It's the creative process. It's the yin yang new thing, right? Chesed, Gevura, boom. We get to the next level. So there's all these permutations. But one gets cut off after every reproduction. So you're counting down from 50, aren't you? So human life is Shiur Omer, you understand? Now why 50? It's something I heard from Rabbi. I think I mentioned it a couple weeks ago, but it's worth repeating. Rabbi said on his 70th, I think it was the 70th anniversary of the founding of 770. Okay? And 770 was founded in well, I don't know if it was his 70th birthday. I'm not sure. Maybe it was something birthday. Something 70s. So he said, here's how life works. Till 20, you're just growing up, right? A 20-year-old is held accountable for Misei B'dei Shamayim. He does Averos, and he's fully accountable because he's expected, and scientifically the brain doesn't fully mature until age 20, etc., etc. And therefore, life really begins at 20. Real adult life. And how long does it go for, the first cycle? Well, it's 50 years. And that takes you to 70. We mentioned this a couple weeks ago. And then, so now what do we say about a person's life? Primary life is Shivim Shana. Im Begvura, Shmonim Shana. They'll get a little stronger. However, the Rebbe said, no. At 70, you begin the second 50. You get another 50. Which is why in the Torah, Hashem limits the life of man prior to the Mabul, right, at the end of Parshas Bereshis. How many years does Hashem say? B'shegamhu basar. He's only going to live to be how old? 120. And who actually lived to 120? Two people that we know for sure lived to 120. Moshe Rabbeinu and Rabbi Akiva, who were in their full powers at 120. So that's life. You get a second chance according to... Right? So, but basically, every time we go on that countdown of Sphira in our cellular life, count another day of Sphira, until what? Until there is nothing left, and the cells that remain can no longer reproduce. Do you understand? Because they've lost their power. Every time 1/50th of the power of reproduction leaves. Telomeres. At the end, what you're left with is the existing cells. And what happens to existing cells? If they don't regenerate themselves, there is the rule of physics that Hashem created in the world called the rule of entropy, which means everything decomposes. Hence we die. So now you understand the secret of how man would actually have evolved to living forever. Let's say Adam was supposed to live 1,000 years, in his limited sense. He would have continued to get closer to Hashem. He would have been given more telomeres and more telomeres and more telomeres until there were more telomeres than he could handle. And he would just keep living and living and living and living and living. And that's what's going to happen. It's going to happen to all of us, B'ez Hashem. Okay. So, by virtue of the fact that we turned away from Hashem, which is the simple Bechira. You understand Bechira? Bechira can be boiled down into two choices. What are the two choices? For the boss, not for the boss. Okay? For the boss, and not for the boss. That's the Bechira. That's all your Bechira is. And therefore, there were three major reasons we mentioned last time why Chava was attracted. We mentioned last time why Chava was attracted to the tree. Are you in here? People remember why she wanted to eat the tree? We said about the esrog and the chita and the grapes, remember? So those are the three. Kina, kavod, and taiva. So let's match them. This is the essential. I'll call them keter, chachma, bina. All right, let's think about this together for a second. Which one matches which, in your opinion? If I say to you, take the three words, keter, chachma, bina. Keter is obviously the highest. And how is it positioned? Way on top. And then you get chachma, bina, right, left. Because everything is like that, right? Everything is the tripod emanating from up there, right, left. And then what do you have? Or center, or more accurately, center. Because then you have chesed, gvura, in the center. Netzach, hod, Yisod in the center, and eventually Malchus, which mirrors Keter, which is the opening product. So which one would you think is Chesed, Gvura, is Kina, Kavod, and Taiva? I would imagine, what would you say? Why? Keter would be Kavod because that's the Kavod of the Malchus, right? Melech shemachal kvodo, ein kvodo machru. He cannot be mechal in his kavod because his essence is kavod. By the way, a woman is called, is like a queen, right? It's supposed to be the malka of the bias. So, what is her essence? It says, kol kvoda as melech tanima. Her home is her realm, her sanctuary. And it's funny because remember I told you, I said in my Shiur, I spoke at the other group, in the what do you call it? In the Matnas the other day, they had the group. So I said to them, if men would only understand that the way to achieve Shalom Bayis is very simple to understand that a woman, you must respect your wives. Give them respect. You can give them money and gold and jewelry if it's done in a respectful way and for respect. Great, but if it's done not right, you're not going to achieve your goal because a woman is associated to Malchus, to Shechina, and therefore, in a sense, she cannot be mochelet on her kavod. She cannot. Just like a melech cannot be mochel on his kavod. So if a husband is not respecting his wife, you know what happens when a melech is mochel on his kavod? You still get punished because he can't. It's just not something that he can do. A child you can forgive, but you cannot forgive your subject. Which is why Bnei Israel ultimately got the key to really succeeding in this process, which is known as the Yud Gimel Midos HaRachamim, which outflank the entire Malchus. Boy, what we were given was the keys to the king's office. We can run around there and make noise and eat candy and create problems and go up and interrupt them when they're speaking, and nothing will happen to us. But get another person to do that, and they're in jail permanently, forever, if they live that long. So back to our three. So if you want to say that keter is kavod, then what is going to be kina, and what is going to be taiva? I think the man, the adam, is representative of taiva, because he ate from the eitz hadas, which was just eating, as we said last time. As a nefesh hashubu ochel is a remez to just physical pleasures, which is eating and physical gratification, etc. And then the other thing is jealousy, right? So if you have keter, chachma, bina. Chachma is the other side of taiva. Man's job is to acquire chachma. Okay? Chachma is literally the ability to break things down, and bina is the ability to association. These are the two intellectual powers that man has. Our minds can do one of two things. We can either take something that we see and break it down to its components, or we can see things and see how they are connected. You know, they have these tests, they say, which one of these groups has nothing in common with everything else here? Everything else has something in common, and this one sticks out.
Sesame Street.
They do that, right?
One of these things.
Which one of these things doesn't belong together, right? So we have two powers. Behind that power is the keter, is the achievement of malchut. So we've got that challenge. So the Nachash, Adam, and Chava then take their problems out of the garden with them. Man is forced, because he had the easy life, and now he's going to have to work really hard. And when you're busy working really hard, and you don't have a lot of leisure time, you don't have a lot of time to indulge your passions because you're just too busy. Like it says, Yafet Torah derech eretz. Why? Because when you're going to work hard and learn hard, there's not much time in the day, and that's it. All your desires are going to be sublimated. Okay, so and Chava's thing is that she was given pain in childbirth and rearing. Why? Because she wanted to be like Hashem to create worlds. Well, a woman does create worlds when she gives birth. And Hashem says, remember, when you create new worlds, you'll be calling out to me for help. Oh my God, this is painful. And then the final thing is Nachash. What was his punishment? He wanted Chava more than anything else. He wanted to be part of man. And Hashem says, man is going to hate you, and women even more will hate you. Right?